G'day, bird nerds. I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd. I'm here with Ricki Coughlan, experienced bird guide, artist, author, and we are going to do our regular deep dive with our new format. How are you, Ricki?
I'm really well, thanks, Grant. I guess feeling the pinch of so many tours lately. It's been really a lot of very early mornings.
Well, let's start with a little bit of scene setting. I'm in Melbourne, Australia. Ricki is in Sydney, Australia. And we're going to talk about what we have been doing, more often talking about what Ricki's been doing in her local patch. But then we'll do a rundown of some of the rare and interesting bird sightings that we may have heard about. Ricki, I've already got a comment coming in. What have we got here? Pink Menial. What have we got there? Oi, trans rights. I love birds. Well, good. And we love trans rights. Okay, cool.
And trans
Pinky or Pinker. Pinkamina. We're not familiar with you, so just tell us where you are, what part of the world you're in, and we'll see if we can shape the discussion to that a little bit. And regular friend here. Hello, Martin. Nice to see you. Martin's on YouTube, and so is Pinkamina. So that's great. All right, Ricki. Let's start. You've been doing a number of tours since we last chatted. So, what have you been seeing that has been interesting in the south of Sydney?
Yeah, well, I've had some that I've been run all around Sydney on, but south of Sydney, it's been a pretty big week for birding and for birds as well, and observing the patterns of change, because we're really now well into that seasonal change where we're starting to see the summer migrants turning up and the winter migrants starting to leave. And of course, a lot of breeding activity is really becoming very obvious now. And just before I came on, I started to pencil a little bit of a list, but I'll start with some of just a few of the migratory arrivals and departures that have been interesting. One is I work out at Sydney Zoo in Western Sydney when I'm not running birdwatching tours. So we're talking out Eastern Creekway, back of Blacktown. So it's a fair bit out there. And I've been getting leaden flycatcher calls from the bush around the outside of the zoo.
Can I just interrupt you before we go on? Just so we did talk last time a little bit about what kind of habitat that might be out there. Yeah. But would you describe it as a dry sclerophyll forest, or is it more woodland? Or have you got some of that riparian creek, melaleuca kind of, or tea tree fringes to the creeks out there? Give us an idea of
there is, right. When you get closer to the creeks, there is that kind of riparian habitat where you get a lot more shrub layer and mid-story density. But most of the woodland out there, it's fairly flat country, and it's an open temperate woodland with a lot of ironbarks in it, but other eucalypts as well, acacias there, grevilleas and banksias are represented, and rather sparse ground cover as a general rule, but not so sparse that there's not plenty of home for lots of quail, and it's some quite fantastic spots out there. Unfortunately, it's all only remnant, and a lot of it is not even the original growth remnant. It's replantings and things like that. So it's a fairly degraded area, but there are some beautiful forests there for birding. And around Sydney Zoo, there's quite a significant woodland. We've got a lot of kangaroos out there. Eastern grey kangaroo is not a rarity in these Western Sydney woodlands, and certainly not. We'll often get calls at the zoo like, your kangaroos have escaped. Because there's just lots of roos in the area.
Isn't that a reflection of the of the world we live in now, where an area that has remnant vegetation has not been developed before, and people see kangaroos and their first thought is they've escaped from the zoo, rather than, aren't we lucky to have wild kangaroos nearby?
Yeah. It is. It is a bit of a, I guess, a statement on the situation with the world, but that's what we've got. And it's really the job of, I guess, people like me who work as nature educators to change that. And hopefully this podcast does its little bit too. And it takes, a million voices to create the awareness and the change that's needed to, ensure that we hand on a world that's at least as good, or at least as much diversity and hope as we received when we came into it.
Yes, so true. Well, I did interrupt you. We were about to go through some of your highlights. So just before we get into your highlights, here's Pink Amina did tell us that she's in Wollongong. Oh, actually, because the mention trans rights and everything, I better get it right. I better not assume what your pronouns are. So if you have pronoun preference and you want me to use them, just let us know in the comments, Pink Amina. But you still live out in Munching.
They them works for every single human being, really. But yeah.
But I'm quite old in my I often just go to what I've been used to saying, even if I don't mean to. So if I know, I try and always get it right, but sometimes I don't, and it's never a deliberate misgendering. So just take that.
And slipping up can be
it's okay. Cool. Okay.
Amanda, you shall now from here on in be addressed as it's.
It's or Pink Amina.
Pink Amina works, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Okay, so Mudgee. Okay, Mudgee is a really interesting part of the world. We might have to talk about that northwest New South Wales in detail sometime. But Pink Amina, if you have any highlights that you've seen, whether they be recent or in the distant past, let us know, because that's the kind of discussion that we would like to get going. Martin's already got in with one. Because Martin picked up on where I interrupted you. Leaden flycatchers. Let's get into that. I saw lots of leaden flycatchers on my recent travels too. They're a delightful bird.
They're very sharp. I really like a leaden flycatcher. And, I love the sexual dimorphism of them too. I think it's really it's a beaut one. They're a great bird.
And they're both very, very handsome birds in their own right, both sexes.
Very sharp.
And they're very entertaining to watch, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, you can really stir them up. If you give a little whistle to them, they get really stirred up. So
and they're curious. They'll actually. Well, what I found was they will follow you along if you are if you're walking along a path. If you do disturb them, they'll keep an eye on you and follow you, which is pretty cool.
It's delightful, isn't it? Yeah. It's just beautiful to have that kind of interaction.
Pick up where you left off with your
leaden flycatcher. There's lots of scissor grinding around Sydney Zoo the other day. Now another one that's come back in considerable numbers into Royal National Park are the top-knot pigeons, and it's always a joy to see them. And
now let me ask you about top knots. Are you seeing them in small groups or fairly larger groups, flocks? I mean, what's the line between a small group and a flock? But yeah, I've only ever seen them in fairly small groups.
25 to 50.
Yeah, I reckon that's a big. That's a flock for me. Yeah, that's
a reasonable flock. Yeah. Like when I lived up on the Northern Rivers, I used to live out west of Wollongong or Mount Warning, and there you would get them in their hundreds, like flocks of several hundred birds. And it's a pretty wonderful and inspiring sight to see. But even getting them down here, they're feeding in a lot of, they're getting into the fig trees, and they're getting into the cabbage palms as well. So into the fruiting cabbage palms. And it's kind of interesting because they're doing this right along the Hacking River, and it's very close to where, and I'll be talking about this soon, but the brown goshawk, one of the local brown goshawks like to nest, and so they do provide a snacking opportunity. Another one that's building up in numbers, we tend to get a few fig birds most of the year in Sydney. They don't disappear completely, but the numbers definitely build up in summer, in spring, summer, and we've got that build up well and truly underway at the moment. So I haven't got any more northern summer migrants to report, but I have had some shining bronze cuckoo. So I'll just pencil that onto my list here, shining bronze cuckoo.
Are they being noisy?
They are starting to assert themselves with their little whistling call in the forests, because we've got tons of fantail cuckoos, and they're another we tend to have all year round, and their numbers build up as we get into spring, but it may be that they start to call more as well. And so that can give the sense that they're building up in numbers. But I dare say they are. So they're all very aware of everything that's going on. We're getting a retreat of yellow-faced honeyeaters, so their numbers are starting to decline a little bit. And they do tend to move further south. So we get like huge numbers of them in the winter. But as spring and summer comes on, their numbers reduce a little. And I get a feeling that they must all move back in huge numbers down the coast and into Victoria.
Yeah, hopefully. I used to see them in Gippsland. I haven't seen them at my place in Melbourne, in the western, northwestern part of Melbourne. But there are reports frequently in the eastern suburbs, in the leafy eastern suburbs, particularly in like the Dandenongs. So hopefully they are coming right through into Melbourne. But yeah, we did used to get them over the summer in Gippsland.
Yeah.
Now Martin's left two comments. One refers to our leaden flycatchers. And yeah,
He's great, their little tail flicking behaviour.
Yeah, like all of those flycatchers. And again, at 60, flying north from Gladstone, that's going to be the top knots.
Yeah.
That'll be the top knots for sure. I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not that familiar with top knots. I mean, really only seen them when I do venture north. But to me, they're always very direct in the way they fly. They're very purposeful, not like some of the other pigeons that sort of seem like they're just cruising around, just looking for something. But top knots always seem to know exactly where they're going. They always seem very purposeful and direct. So.
Seems to me if you get like emerald doves, some of the fruit doves, brown cuckoo dove, they will sort of move around a little, appear in fashions that appear indecisive. They're probably not. But if you're talking like really good direct flyers, one of the kings or queens of this has to be the crested pigeon. They're just like a power straight line flyer. I love that when they really move off. But top knot pigeon, they're another power flyer, and you can really hear them coming, and they're a fantastic big pigeon. And
mentioning the crested pigeon, now they are one of the very common birds around my place. But since I've been back, I'm not seeing many crested pigeons. I'm seeing loads and loads of the introduced spotted dove, but I don't know what's happening with the crested pigeons. So I'll keep an eye on those and keep us updated as we go along. What's Martin said? I don't know that their migration habits for a few months ago. I'm not sure if are the top knots regular migrants or are they food source migrants, Ricki? Like, do they follow the fruit?
Oh, you're thinking, are they seasonal, sort of passage migrants, or are they like a nomadic?
Yeah,
No,
like
they're
sort of
certainly,
opportunistic migrants. Like they,
yeah, like you're talking like lorikeets and many of the
yeah,
honey eaters
yep,
and things
yep,
like that.
yep.
I don't think so. As far as I know, they are definitely a seasonal migrant, because the only times a year we see them is from late August through to about March, April, sometimes as late as May, and then they are definitely gone. And usually, it's
So
really when you really get a strong sense of that's the last flock of top knots leaving when you see them moving along the Hacking River Valley, and you know that it's time to say, hello to cooler climates, to
yeah.
cooler months.
Hooroo,
Yeah, yeah.
hooroo,
And
see
it's
ya.
I always feel really sad when I know that that's probably the last flock. But it means it's time for me to leave the Hacking River Valley and get up on some of the ridgetop trails when the birding becomes amazing.
Well,
So
let's talk about that difference. Maybe if we have time later, or maybe we'll save that one, the difference
yeah.
up for a bit later.
Finishing in Britain. Oh, yeah.
Pinkamena loves crested pigeons. Are are the crested pigeons in Wollongong as continuously randy as the crested pigeons in Melbourne? I'll throw that one out there.
I think it goes with the pigeon territory,
Well,
and it's sometimes they'll be courting and trying to copulate pretty much around your feet out at the zoo. It's quite
cresteds are in a league of their own when it comes
Oh
to.
yeah, but they are stunning. When the male does his little display with the wings puffing out and the tail opening, and he's calling, he's very chirpy about his prospects, and it's really something to see.
Yeah, they're always
I just love it. Yeah, they live in hope, those guys, and they are
they're
very
always
good.
they're always very, 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 very confident in their. So,
You can find most male birds are pretty confident,
I always wonder what their
Well, I guess,
success rate might be.
if you don't try and look confident, I guess you're signaling that maybe you're not their guy. So you need to step up in a big way in that respect. But
Yeah, I have noticed that there's been lots of actually this is when I first came back, there was a couple of pairs. I usually see like scores of pairs around here, but I just saw a couple of pairs and they were nest building. So that was, what are we talking? Early August. So to me, that's pretty early. Yeah.
That's fairly early. I don't know, like in Sydney, a lot of people will go, oh, these birds are nesting in August, or, I'm seeing this, they're very early this year. Birds nest in August, like August is the month for it. It's because if you're not building a nest and laying eggs, because it's going to take a couple of weeks of incubation, you want to be ready as soon as the warm weather starts in the last couple of weeks of August and then into September, to really have your young out there when the food's going.
Because and they have to be adaptable. Like apparently I missed most of winter here, but it was a very warm winter. I think the warmest, or one of the warmest on record in Melbourne. So you need to shift further. You need to be nesting earlier so that your young are fledged and independent before the extremely hot, dry, and scarce food period of the height of summer actually arrives.
The thing is, too, that to take into consideration, many of these birds will go for 2 or 3 clutches. And so they need time to often, build a new nest, get over raising the first lot, build a new nest, lay those eggs. And, it's very demanding on a female bird, so she can spread that out a little. that's a good thing. But these birds are really, they work hard, and they'll work very hard through August, September, right through to February. And especially some species are amazing. But I'll read my little list of what's breeding, what I have seen in breeding activity, because it's quite remarkable. For a start, lyrebirds, superb lyrebird is pretty much finished in terms of nesting, and it'll be because they have a long incubation period, and it won't be too much longer, and we'll start seeing the fledgling lyrebirds hopping about the place, following mum around, and they're a gorgeous sight to see, and it's a real marker of the seasons in the forests of Sydney.
Now,
but
are you seeing them in Royal National Park and over near Sydney Zoo, or are you seeing them only in the National
We don't tend to get them. The habitat's not quite right, and there isn't enough habitat, I would imagine, around that area for lyrebirds to thrive in. Got to go a little bit further out, start getting up into the mountains, the foothills. But in the forests of the coastal national parks around Sydney, like Heathcote National Park, Royal National Park, and Ku-ring-gai National Park, plenty of lyrebirds in there. And it's hard to tell. I didn't get a sense of whether they had a great season or not this year, but I must admit this winter I spent a fair bit of time up on the ridge tops. But the birds I've seen nesting, I've seen eastern yellow robins sitting on nests. I've seen superb fairy wrens. Saw a superb fairy wren. If anyone can tell me if they've seen the same, but maybe 5, 6 meters, 7 meters off the ground in an angophora, in a kind of a eucalypt. Well off the ground, not down low. And I don't know if I raised this last week or not. I got a feeling I might have.
You did mention this, you did mention that you'd seen them nesting high.
They're continuing with that nest, and it looks like that the female's laying in it. Now, I've seen variegated fairy wrens with nesting material and males displaying and doing, getting all hot and bothered. Let me put my glasses on. Bayesian thrush. I've got a Bayesian thrush looking incredibly cryptic on their incredibly cryptic nest, with the male hanging around feeding her while she's sitting on the nest. So fabulous bird in the deep rainforest, the Hacking River. It's just a gorgeous thing. Australian log runner, almost adjacent to them. Now, I've got a pair of log runners in Royal National Park, which I don't think anyone else knows about. And they're a really difficult bird there. It's definitely not a common bird by any stretch of the imagination in the Royal, along the trails at least. Some people used to get them in their gardens who lived on the verge of the national park, but that's not a common thing. And I think some of those people, they might have been talking about Bayesian thrush, to be honest. But log runners, gorgeous little bird with that little kicking out the leaves habit that they have. They kick the leaves side to side and work in a little circle, so they make these little bowl-shaped depressions in the leaf litter, and they really dig in to go for those little worms and invertebrates that get in just beneath the leaf litter on the soil. Yellow-throated scrub wrens, they're at it. They're my birds I pay the most attention to, and I'm seeing some reusing last year's nest, and I'm seeing some working on new ones. White-browed scrub wrens, they're nesting. Brown gerygony, they're nesting. Chestnut rump heath wren. So I got chestnut rump heath wren carrying nesting material the other day. Beautiful firetails are building nests everywhere. Gorgeous finch. Crimson and eastern rosellas are nesting. Australian wood ducks are nesting. Little corellas are nesting. Rainbow lorikeets, brown thornbills. Brown thornbills, it's just total war with they are so territorial around nesting and establishing that nesting territory. And because you've got interlopers, and the neighbouring males will sneak in and try and copulate with the female, and often she's not averse to this. So they're little hussies, some of these little acanthizids, but what can I say?
how do you get a sense of how large a territory is for the brown thornbills?
Hard to say because I only see them from one dimension. I'm sure if I consulted some excellent research, I can't think of his name offhand. I might get that together for next time, though. Some fantastic research work that I'm referring to a lot of in my book, Little Brown Birds of the Sydney region. And it's, he goes right into everything about the life history and breeding ecology, feeding ecology, everything of the brown thornbill. But I find you can walk about 30, 40, maybe 50 metres along a trail and you will still be walking along the same territory of one of these birds.
That's
but you
a
can
very
be
large
walking
territory, isn't it?
Well,
for such a little bird.
I don't necessarily get that sense. And you see, that may vary according to the quality of the habitat,
of course.
Because the size of their territories, I do know, is dependent upon the density of the shrub layer.
Yeah, that's
now.
Obviously, because they're feeding in standing vegetation.
Yeah, in the shrub layer.
That the square meterage of the surface of leaves available will obviously impact on the and the bark crevices. You know, the number of standing stems and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that will obviously have a difference in what they would need as a minimum.
But here's the kicker: they nest round about anything from 10 to 30 centimetres from the ground in ferns and long grass. So
knee high.
All of a sudden that changes. They move straight down out of the shrub layer. The interesting thing is when they do that, the striated thornbills move in because they build their nests in the mid-story and just above the shrub layer.
Yeah, higher up and often in, in dense foliage.
They make these beautiful little orbs of usually around Sydney at least and elsewhere, like further up the coast, out of stringy bark, stringy bark. And there's these gorgeous little woven affairs with
they're
with a little
beautiful nests. Beautiful nests. Now let me just have a look at some of the comments. Martin has mentioned seeing superb fairy wrens. This came in after you were talking about the height of the nesting.
Nice in high benches in Wollongong Coast. Thanks for that, Martin. Very interesting.
So that's reasonably geographically similar to your area. So
pretty much.
And more fairy wrens, family of variegated fairy wrens that forage along a 2.3 kilometre track. Now that, to me, that would jive because they do move. The variegated group tend to get around a lot more than I think the
I've never seen anything like 2.3 kilometres, like one family, never. But
although if it was a very narrow area,
well, that's the thing. If it's along a creek,
if it's maybe only a limited band of vegetation along a track, particularly if it's developed on either side, I can see that too. But here's a really cool one that Martin's popped in, and I hadn't heard this, but have you been aware that there's emus hanging out at Penrith?
Weanamata Reserve, there are a couple of emus. So the larger Weanamata Reserve getting out towards Penrith there, and of course nearby is adjacent good old Emu Plains.
Yeah, cool. So I'm not aware of many places.
I have not seen them, but I have it on good authority that they're there.
So that's cool. And I'm not sure if I've looked this up before. I'm not sure if I brought this up before, but referring to the crested pigeons and their confidence,
Oh, yes.
Pinkalina has
Yes, that
popped
was,
in
yeah.
there, and here we go. Martin telling us a bit more about that that track for the variegated fairy wren. So it's very thick bushland. So I'd wonder how wide that belt of
Yeah, yeah.
bushland is because. But one thing I've noticed, I didn't see and haven't seen a lot of variegated fairy wrens. We don't have them
No, they're not a
around here.
Melbourne bird.
No, but um, well, what I did notice with the families, and we had a couple of groups. I think I've mentioned talking in various podcasts before, probably with Holly or with Holly Kirk, maybe that they were pretty regular in their daily activities. Like when they were foraging, they would they'd be in one spot for early morning and then they'd move along and move along and move along, and they, as long as the weather was fairly consistent and there weren't predators or disturbances around, they would move around in a pattern. So I wonder if that's just localized or whether that's a
Yeah.
consistent thing that groups of fairy wrens do.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
have 4 families of variegated fairy wrens in about 450 metres of trail on Lady Carrington Drive. And I have 4 families within about 150 metres on Curra Moors on a trail there in Royal National Park. So they can be quite condensed.
Yeah, and
Um,
again, it's probably
yeah.
quality of habitat, food opportunities that determine that the size that the territory needs to be.
Well, they're very interesting. They tend to like a quite complex understory, whether it's complex. So a lot of diversity in the vegetation type. Whereas you find like superb fairy wrens will hang out in a monoculture, like they're happy with some reeds on the side of a pond or some grasses on the verge of mangroves, and they seem to me to have been a species that would have thrived on regenerating bushland after fire and
After fire,
freezing.
exactly.
Freezing,
Regrowth
that
after
kind of thing. Like
fire.
they're
Yeah,
moving when the diversity isn't that great of the vegetation, and where there's plenty of ground to hop around on and forage from. And you see them go right up into trees, but you see them a lot bobbing around on the
on the
ground.
ground.
And I've got a photo somewhere of me holding a variegated and superb fairy wren. And when you look at their bills, the morphology or architecture of their bills is so significantly different. Quite simple with the superb fairy wren, but quite a complex structure of the variegated fairy wren. And it may talk to that must certainly speak to probably not so much the way they build nests, but the way they are foraging.
Yeah, and probably how they need to grasp and process
what they're grabbing for and how they're extracting it and working it. And because it's an important tool. You've got to have the right cutlery.
Well, they basically got to have fingers in their bills often,
They're amazing. When do you think that how birds can build some of these stunning nests with just a bill? We can't do it with our clumsy finger. We got all these fingers and this great big brain and this binocular vision, and we could not build those stunning little nests that these birds create. It's just a great marvel. Right. But anyway, moving on to my list. White-throated tree creepers on nests, satin bowerbirds, males calling above their bower. So lots of that going on. And they're getting really noisy and very hopeful chappies as they are. Golden whistlers are establishing their territories. The calls are getting more and more complex and strident, and males and females are teaming up to chase away neighbouring males and females that are trying to encroach. That's cool. Brown goshawks copulating on a branch above where their nest was last year. So I figure they're ready to go again this year. New Holland honeyeaters, of course, those very, very rare birds in Sydney.
Now let me interrupt you again there, Ricki. Yeah. Two relevant things for both of those species. I'll start with what I mentioned with Holly the other day with New Holland honeyeaters. I've been seeing a behaviour I hadn't seen before. Now, you know how you often see honeyeaters chasing each other around, it's very active and they're flying around. Now that I see all the time, and it's not only one sex chasing the other. They sort of playing tag. I saw what I presume to be the male, slightly bigger and brighter in terms of how crisp and clean the plumage of the bird was, but just chasing one female around, just in one prunus, like in one flowering plum or something, but not in that manic way they do when they're flitting around and chasing each other, just like hopping from branch to branch, chasing one female around. Have you seen that before?
You see everything with these birds, like because they're the most common bird around Sydney would have to be the New Holland honeyeater. And you see them doing everything, gathering in their mobs and doing their harkers and
mob stuff. That's what I usually see. Groups.
Yeah. But yeah, individuals, groups especially now. Lots of I gather they're males and females bobbing around in the same bush, and it's not aggressive chase away. So it's probably, courtship related, or maybe looking after their turf, their patch together, the male and female together.
This was definitely, they're only focused on each other. Look, it actually reminded me of the way the male crested pigeons just chase around a female, but they'll chase any female, right? So, but yeah, okay. So that was that. Okay, so you've seen it. I haven't seen it before. And the other one, the goshawk was the other one. Did you see that post on Facebook that someone put up? And I meant to pull it together today, and I couldn't find it. Yeah, but it was people thought it was a male brown goshawk based on the prey, which was a spotted dove, and it was on top flapping its wings as it was killing the bird. But one of the comments that I saw, because someone said, my son just filmed this in the backyard, what is it? And of course most people, it's an accipiter, either a collared sparrowhawk or a brown goshawk, and then the more detailed. But one of the great comments that I saw come in was someone going, "Is it raping that bird?" I mean,
I try not to join too much of the ID commentary because it can get annoying.
But isn't it amazing that I'm giving the person the benefit of the doubt, not that they were just shit posting to get a reaction out of people. And of course I didn't reply or anything. And no one did, thankfully. No, someone did explain that it was killing the thing. But isn't it what I thought was that there's an unfamiliarity, again, with casual observers about what kinds of birds are out there, that we do have hunters and birds of prey have to kill birds. And in a suburban garden setting, you're going to see it. So,
it's all going on. So, and a lot of raptors are finding their way into urban settings. So, and good on them, more power to them. There's plenty of food around.
Especially spotted doves.
Yeah.
Now, Martin's got a question for you, I believe. Have you seen any channel bills yet, or the devil bird, the eastern coel?
Not yet.
No,
not yet. Looking forward to it. I do love a coel.
Well, make sure you tell us.
I love it. When I hear the coels calling, I'm like, beauty. Summer's coming. And they're adorable. I love the way the females hang around in their territory, recognise the calls of all of their youngsters, and then round them all up and take them off up north at the end of the season. It's just a fabulous story. What great mums. They got their childcare all sorted out, and their little their kids who evilly killed their fellow well, their hosts young. But anyway, off they all go, and good on them.
Carl down. Mentioned that
Esk.
Coel's at Esk. Now, Esk, I think, is it's north of the extreme northern part of the Darling Downs, I would say. I think Esk is in that what we call it? Is it the Maranoa? I'm not sure. I think it's a bit south of the Maranoa, but west of the Sunshine Coast, I think, or even maybe a little bit further north.
A little bit further north. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
okay.
Martin will tell us, but so that I don't have to look up a map and bring it up. But yeah, that's so that's fairly well. That's probably mid-range in their Australian distribution, I would have thought. Southwest of Brisbane. Okay, so Esk is actually more down behind the Granite Belt.
St George and down that way.
Yeah, not that far west,
I
don't think. So the western extreme of the Darling Downs, west of the Granite Belt, I would have to say. But we'll get an update on that.
Cool. Well,
Pinkamena. Honestly, watching birds of prey hunt is super fascinating. Yeah, I agree. Well, we don't call them murder birds for nothing. So, yeah, it can be graphic, can be disturbing. It really helps theropods. Yeah,
I posted the other day, in the future when we get our acts together, dinosaurs will no longer be called reptiles because it's wrong. They are not reptiles. They are no more reptiles than we are. And we will call them class Dinosauria. And we will elevate them to a class, and we will call birds super order aves under theropods. Under Dinosauria, class Dinosauria. That's what I believe.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you.
Because these are the facts of the matter, that our phylogeny is so confused around this. All birds are theropods, and there's still a lot of discussion in this space, but probably the closest winding road of evolution to arriving to our neo-aves, our modern birds, comes through the Maniraptoran theropods, because they had a number of dead ends, and there's stacks of dead ends. But there were birds of the class A's flying around 80 million years ago. That's a significant stretch back into the Cretaceous, and they're just certainly and completely part of the dinosaur group.
And just to talk about how terrifying it can be with murder birds, one of the places that I saw collared sparrowhawk on my recent trip, I think I've recounted this story before, but I wanted to try and get a good look at it to be sure if it was a goshawk or a sparrowhawk, right? Because every time I glimpsed it, it would move to another bit of foliage along this creek bed. But I did find where it had been perching, and of course, when I looked down, budgie head. so they just tear. But in a good season, even though the brain is within the skull's all bone. There's so much bone with the beak, so they think that's the crap bit. I'm not going to even bother eating that. They just eat the good bit with the good organs and move on in a good season. So
it's great. It used to be great up at Broome Bird Observatory. That was one of the cool things. You could sit there in the little camp kitchen there and look straight out at the bird bath and spend the day watching these accipiters. It was mostly the brown goshawk there that you'd see using that little because we set up a bird bath, and I mean that's very nice, but it's also like hanging out the welcome mat.
That's right. It's also like putting out, like constructing a McDonald's drive-through for raptors.
Basically, it was, yeah. And but what to do? So the goshawk, you just see the ambit claim, like it would just be, or the ambit flyby. They just come down, they just do a swoop, and if a bird gets, flies in the wrong direction, they've got it. And they just spend the day every now and again swooping by. But I have to say, once we get to about 45 degrees, there's a truce. And I made this little shower. I got a hose and I put a bolt in the end and wrapped it up with wire and jammed up a hose and poked all the holes in it and hung it in the tree so it was a bird shower. And I had like the yellow white eyes and all kinds of finches and honey eaters all getting in amongst it, having a little shower. And sitting in the middle of them was the brown goshawk getting fluffing itself and getting all of it. And it was a complete truce.
I've mentioned it before when I had my little nursery in Gippsland. I had a little creek that like a decorative little stream that I built, and in that summer, the Black Saturday summer, when it was extremely hot for weeks on end, the same thing. The currawongs and magpies would just be coming in and sitting in the little creek, which was with a pebble base, so it was really shallow for all the birds to use. And I would put some spray jets up there, and the currawongs and the magpies would be there with the fantails and the eastern yellow robins and the thornbills and the fairy wrens. Like you say, it was a truce. It's like, hey, we've all just had to come to the beach. It's so hot.
Yeah. That's cool, isn't it?
Now, so before we move on, just clarify that southwest of Brisbane is Esk, and it's dairy country. Thank you for that, Martin. And Pinkamena, going back into your paleontology lesson there, Ricki.
Oh, yes, because this reflects all of this nomenclature, and a lot of it does reflects the 19th century when we were digging up the first and starting to really identify the first dinosaur fossils, and but I guess that was the best I could do, and I don't mind calling them a dinosaur because the appearance is reptilian, I guess, and but the knowledge now is that this was a much more diverse clade, and really pterosaur, the whole pterodactyl thing, that they may actually be included more among the reptiles than the dinosaurs were. Same with the marine reptiles of the period, elasmosaurs, plesiosaurs, ichthyosaurs, mosasaurs. I believe all of these were reptiles, not
Loch Ness monsters.
Yeah, well, that's a peculiar one, isn't it? Yeah. No, but very much not related. Well, only very, very distantly related to striated thornbills, which are also nesting, and little wattlebirds, which have finished their first round of nesting. And that is my nesting and migratory bird roundup for this day.
I think I haven't found any nests of the wattlebirds here, but they're still really active in courtship and territorial defence here. So I'm wondering if they've actually started up here or not.
So you realise that these ones are fledged. I'm seeing immature ones, or definitely a lot of juvenile ones.
I haven't seen any offspring yet for either of the wattlebirds, so I will report on that next time. Oh, yes, and if you are looking at the next time Ricki and I are going to do our deep dive, I can tell you it's going to be on the 26th of this month. So by then we'll have lots to talk about. That was the date we decided, didn't we, Ricki?
I'm just quickly diving in here, and it would appear that it is, yes.
Yes, and that was the day you told me. So I'm just letting people know in advance. So there'll be 2 clear weeks of bird watching before we get back together again in the third week, and you'll have done Christmas holidays, school holidays in between. So we'll have lots to talk about.
Oh, no, we'll have school holidays kick off on the 27th and the beginning of
December.
December.
Are they up? Is it after? Okay. I think ours are a bit earlier here.
But speaking of lights, I did something that I swore off some time back, and I'm not a fan of it. And that is when people contact me and they've got a list and they're going to run me all over Sydney.
On your tour. So are you accompanying them and they're driving? Is that the idea?
Sometimes they're driving and sometimes I'm driving, but we're usually in the same car. And they'll turn up with a list, and they're generally from overseas. And it becomes a very intense day because their focus is, like for me, my tours are generally, yes, you can come on a bird watching tour. We're going to go to a place and we're going to see the birds that are there. And we're going to enjoy everything about this place. And we will stop to look at butterflies, and we will stop to say, hey, there's a ghost moth emerging from that acacia, or or there's some Botany Bay diamond weevils, or like this. We will observe nature as well as, because that is part of the joy of birding, because you're out in nature.
They're not twitching tours generally.
Yeah. Well, it's really a ticking tour. Like a twitcher is someone that will say, hey, you've got the, a northern pintail's turned up in your local pond, can you take me there? That's different than someone saying, I've got 8 birds I want to see.
Yeah, I want to go and tick them all off.
And I don't care what you have to do to find them for me.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're going to stomp off trail, if I can use unlimited playback, whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
And I got hauled through one of them this week, which is definitely the last time it will happen. Don't contact me with your list, people. I don't do lists.
When you're in that situation, Ricki, as someone who does operate tours, do you, because it's a commercial proposition for you, do you just bite your tongue and go with it, or do you just say, hey, no, we're not doing that. We're not turning, we're not playing that call again. We're not stomping down there.
Generally, if you're with one person, and when someone books a tour with me, they're meant to read my
terms and conditions.
Terms and conditions that have all of this stuff in it. But it seemed that the people I had out the other day did not, and
were they locals?
A couple of people, it's different. Like if someone contacts me and says, Ricki, can you show me those log runners? I will definitely take you and show you the log runners. Yeah. Can you show me one thing or maybe 2 on the same trail? I will do that, but I will not run all over Sydney and spend 13 or 14 hours walking many, many kilometres on multiple trails, chasing one bird after the other. And it's no good. So, and sometimes, like, I felt that some of the things were just becoming ridiculously risky that I was being called upon to do. But, for one person, I will say, I'm sorry, the terms and conditions of my tours are this. If I have to remind them. But, when you're with a couple of guys and they're just whipping out the phone and they're just doing it, you can't stop it. And
was that a raven?
Just outside, Australian raven. You go, no, agreeing with me. Go, no, that one, we don't like that. But off trail stomping and all kinds of stuff going on to get pilot birds. Folks, basically don't come to Sydney to get a pilot bird. You won't get one. You are on the dumb luck thing, or the 4 or 5 locations in Royal National Park where you can stomp through the dense heath, crushing all the little birds' nests as you go, or risking falling down some deep, horrible ditch in the heath that you won't see, and doing your playback. No, one little trail where you can sit there and do a little playback, and you will get a pilot bird. But I'm not a playback fan of on one bird all the time.
No.
And I will be going there tomorrow. I am taking someone who wants to see a chestnut rump heath wren.
That will be a nice bird.
They are a lovely little bird, and this person deserves to see a chestnut rump heath wren because they've come to me with a list of 2 birds. Yeah. They want to see a rock warbler. I want to see a chestnut rump heath wren. Can do. I guarantee they'll get it. Yeah. And it's not often you can guarantee, but I can guarantee that I can get them that bird and a rock warbler.
Very, 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 very nice. I do like it.
Chestnut rump heath wren is such a beautiful bird. When you see a really good little perky male, a very gorgeous bird, and when they come up high and they start with their mimicry and their calls, it really is a delight and just a very sharp little bird. And yeah, I adore them. So it will be my pleasure to show this person that bird tomorrow. And they're another that can be interestingly curious. They'll come out and they'll really check you out. And,
I think that's quite common for a lot of birds. So many people that go birding are always on the move. So you don't really know what the birds would do. Sometimes if you just sit down, be quiet, and look around, that's when the birds come in, because once you've done the initial disturbance and then everything settles down again, they will come. But if you keep traipsing through, and especially if there's a large group, the birds don't get the opportunity to settle.
No. And but it is very funny. It's those birds that do want to come and have a little bit of a better look. It is. I do find it is if you do stop and sit down, and many birds are very confiding in this way.
There we are. We've just given. This has just come in from Pinkamena, which is fortuitous.
On properly birding. Well, Pinkamena, you need to contact me and come birding with me. And you don't necessarily. Anyone can contact me and come birding with me, and they don't necessarily have to say, Ricki, can I come on your, $340 tour or whatever? They can just say, hey, you going birding today? And I might say, yes. Are you coming?
And that's how you do it, Pinkamena.
Yes.
Just check out Ricki's website, AussieWild.com.
It doesn't always have to be about the dollar. No. It's about the joy of sharing birds and the natural world, and I just love it. So when people come out birding with me, I'm always really happy. And chestnut rump heath wren, little beauty. I've got like 3 or 4 quite reliable patches. One that's particularly reliable at the moment, and it's on a little trail. It's not very often used. Some fishermen use it to cut across country in Royal National Park, and it's a very cool little patch where you can get the chestnut rump heath wren, and maybe about 50 or 60 metres further along, the pilot bird. But you've got to use playback to get the pilot bird, so I don't like to do the pilot bird. Pilot birds, Blue Mountains, barren grounds. Go and get them up there.
It's many, many years since I've seen a pilot bird, but I used to see them in the Divide, north over the Divide, family property I've talked about a number of times. Didn't see them often, but would just stumble upon them. They'd be just doing their thing, and they'd just be out doing their thing. So I'd
there used to be a bird in Royal National Park. There used to be a bird of the tall forest, and that's where you used to go to get them. But now it's the heath. In Royal National Park, it's heath. If you go up in the mountains,
because where I used to see them, it was in Mountain Ash, Eucalyptus regnans forest. So interesting. So I used to see them on the edges of clearings and on wide wide tracks. And when does a track become a trail, Ricki?
When you've got Americans with you.
Yeah, that's right.
When you're Americans with you, it's a trail. When you're caught in Australians, there's a track winding back to.
That's right. It's always a track for me.
Yeah.
It's always a track. Now, Martin's followed up on those comments about birds following you. Yeah. Oh, definitely. Fantails, leaden flycatchers will follow you. Mistletoe birds. I haven't really noticed mistletoe birds following me, but if there's a mistletoe bird around and you are around, it will fly in, get a perch up above you and check you out. I haven't ever noticed them following me, but then again, when you're birding, you often don't see what is following you. Scarlet honeyeaters, I can't attest to that, but I do know that they're very, very curious when they're around. So, can you comment on any of those, Ricki? Grey fantail, of course.
Grey fantail. All you got to do with the grey fantails are one of those disturbance foragers.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the official term, but it's the one I use, where I've seen them fly directly at tree creepers and all kinds of birds to scare them, so they flutter and disturb an insect for them. And they're always in, whenever there's a mixed foraging flock, you'll have your grey fantails in looking for what they're disturbing. And I'll often, if I want to get a grey fantail to come down, I'll just stand there gently shaking a little bush by the side of the trail, and they'll come down.
And if you're in long grass, like knee high or whatever, that is when they will follow you along. Willy wagtails the same too. They'll go ahead of you and behind. They'll keep coming back and forward.
Well, they use so many foraging disturbance tactics, and it's possibly the most interesting one is their use of shadows. So I did work on them when I was in uni, and I was just studying their foraging behaviour and how frequently they did a certain number of behaviours. So it's just little frequency tables we're putting together. And what I found was that when the sun is, at the time of year I was doing this, which is about March, April, when between about 9 and 11:30 and about 2 and 3:30, they would walk with the sun behind them with their tail fanned, flicking it side to side across the footy fields where I was observing them. And I was trying to work out why is these two spikes in this behaviour turning up at that time of the day. And then I remembered as a runner running through so many parks in the early morning, noticing willy wagtails getting on the leading edge of my shadow as I'm running, picking up whatever my shadow is disturbing in the grass. And I realised they're using their tail to cast a shadow in front of them to disturb invertebrates so they can catch them. Because otherwise they're using what I was calling wing flashing. They'll flick their wings forward as they progress across an area and jump. And if the grass is very long, they'll jump with their tail fanned and turn around and swivel and try and scare things and flush it out of the grass. And that's their MO. So
okay. There's your homework, everyone. Whether you've got willy wagtails or fantails in your area, because they're so familiar, a lot of times we don't really watch what they're doing. You can watch that, whether they're on a park, an oval, or on the edges of a track, in established tussock grass, or if it's maintained mown lawn areas. Just see what they're doing with their tails. That's your homework, and see if your observations jive with Ricki's, and you can tell us about it.
That'd be great. Yeah, another really good one is swallows. If you're running or walking across, they'll be all around your feet. It's a great opportunity to get a really close look at these stunning little birds, which are in my top 10 of favourite birds to welcome swallow.
I love swallows and martins.
I'm going to get a swallow tattoo, I think. I haven't got any tattoos, so I think I should have and of course they're a classic tattoo.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very nice swallow.
Yeah, classic jailhouse tattoo. So just
They
don't
are
get one of those
identical pirates.
with
See
your
going, see going.
with your made with your ballpoint pen. Um, so Martin's
The white
mentioned,
chuffs.
yeah, Martin's
Yeah,
mentioned that the white-winged chuffs,
such a big bird.
like babblers, apostle birds, they're all great to watch while they're foraging.
All the happy
Chu-
families birds. Yeah.
chuffs as well. Yep. Now Martin's maybe reiterated what I mentioned about the mistletoe birds. Yeah, I do
Yeah,
notice they come in,
yeah.
have a look, and then they kind of nick off. They keep an eye on you, but they do go back off doing
Yeah. They
their
lean
thing.
forward for a better look. They
Yeah,
come in, lean
yeah,
forward, have a bit of a look and go, what's this mammal up to?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I guess all of this too can fall under the category of, the farmer ploughing the field, or, the willy wagtail on the back of the dog,
Yep,
and on the back of the cow, and
yep,
all that stuff. And because all the egrets are in cattle egrets, that's what they're
yep,
all about.
yep,
So,
yep,
it's fabulous how birds have learnt to create opportunity. And because then you've got, like in Victoria, the pilot bird, and in New South Wales, your white-browed scrub wren and your yellow-throated scrub wren, round the feet of the lyrebirds, and
yep.
all those little mutualisms or commensalisms that go on with birds, relying on the activities of others. Just fabulous.
That's
And it
right.
reminds us of ecology.
Sorry, Ricky. While we're sort of discussing widely, I'll have to let people know we did mention that we would have a look at some rare bird alerts. I didn't think we'd be talking so long before we even got to them.
Let's get to it. Yeah.
So, I'm going to get to a couple. I'm not going to get to all of the ones that I've brought up, but what I would like to, I'm going to run through the ones for Victoria on eBird for the last 7 days, just to see if there's anything really interesting come through. So let's pop that list up. So this is only for the last week. So we've got Australian shovelers, Bell's Swamp. Now they're all from Bell's Swamp. So there's obviously been a group. Now someone's counted 20. The others are smaller groups. Blue-billed duck, great crested grebe. Now here's one which I thought was good, but it is in Tooborac, which is up north of, I think it's northwest of Bendigo. So it's in that dry forest area. Black-eared
You
cuckoo.
expect to get one, really. That kind of country, isn't it?
That's right, black-eared cuckoo.
Mm.
A spotless crake around Moira, Chinaman's Island. So you can see it's the same places. People go and have a look to find them. Black-tailed native hen.
Nice name for a locality, Chinaman's Island. I think maybe.
Yeah,
name that.
I'm hoping that as time moves on, we'll start to move away from those things. Same with
names. That's a fairly offensive.
But black-tailed native hen, that's a good one. Yeah, and yeah, just because they're an offensive name, we can't. You've got to use the name that people know the location.
I know it's all the eponymous names and all of that.
Yeah.
That
so it's good. So we're going to talk about Garraweird instead of the Grampians from now on.
Garraweird. What's the Grampian? Anyway, that's another discussion.
Garraweird is the name that has and there's like a crossover period where it's officially Garraweird now, but there's that time where old people who only know the location as the Grampians need time to get used to calling it something
so like the slash, it's like Wollomba, Mount Warning and that kind of thing. Yeah. Or Gamay, Botany Bay.
So look at that spotless crake. So someone's found 2 of them at Hamilton Park in Wangaratta, but these are all in that all north of the Divide, Namurka, so that's around Shepparton, Goldfields, Central Goldfields, so that's around Bendigo, Moira, which is again northeast. So there's a couple around. Painted snipe, this is a good one.
Good one.
Matt
Everyone
Alexander, it's
that.
all at Bell's Swamp though. So, but a pair of them or 2 of them, so that's good, and that's a whole bunch of people have seen that, so that's good. And what else? Uh,
Bloody turnstone, is that a rare thing in Victoria?
no, I wouldn't have thought
Maybe
so, but
locally uncommon to that area, perhaps?
I think it's pretty early. I think it's pretty early, so it might have been overwintering. Ricketts
Yeah,
Point,
maybe.
which is Ricketts Point, is Beaumaris, Sandringham area, so that's sharp-tailed sandpiper. Wood sandpiper, I think, is one that might not be regular, but that's down at in the Geelong area. Painted button quail, again, I'm not sure that would be rare. I just think people don't see them that often.
That's like southern emu wren. People come to me wanting to see emu wrens a lot, and they're one of the most common birds in Royal National Park, but they're just
They're hard to
cryptic,
find,
tiny,
hard
they
to
live in
see.
dense,
Yeah.
vegetation. Yeah. So, yeah.
So we've got a little
Yeah,
turn
there's a good
again
one.
on Buller's albatrosses down at Port Fairy on one of the pelagic tours. Yep.
Good one, yeah.
Australian little bittern is a good get, and these square-tailed kites in Melbourne, Maroondah, square-tailed kite in Maroondah, and someone actually put a photo up. So that's an unusual one. And then there's Warby Ovens National Park, which is up north, Moira again, northeast of Melbourne, square-tailed kite. So there's a couple of good ones. Black kite is probably unusual for Melbourne, but they're certainly not a rare bird. We've got powerful owls. We've got some gangs. Where are they? Mount Alexander, Post Office Hill Reserve. I think that's up Bendigo or Ballarat region, I think. So they are the Victorian ones. Let me see if I can find the one I really wanted to point out, which I thought was a ripper. I think it's going to be in this one. No, not that one. That's British Columbia. Is this the one? Oh, yeah, Rare Bird Alert UK. All right, here. Come on, hurry up.
Oh, this is going to be good.
This one is an absolute corker. The brown booby, Bishop Rock, which I think is in Scotland. But not only did they get a brown booby, which here's another shot of it, on Flay Brig.
I'm not seeing those photographs on screen. You might, those images on screen.
Sorry, yeah. I haven't changed it over, have
They're
I?
in Victoria.
Here we go. Share this tab. Sorry. There we are.
There's a brown booby.
Brown booby.
I've only seen them in Northwest Australia, and I'm not aware of their range. But is that
Filey Brig, which disappeared and then relocated off Hunmanby Gap and Rayton Sands, which I'm pretty sure are up. I think it's in Scotland. The Rosie Starling or the Roseate Starling is back in Kent in full colour. But there's another shot of the brown booby at Bishop's Rock. And here we go again. Brown booby at... So they're cormorants, I believe. And there is the brown booby in the middle on a video. He's going to have a poo. There we go. The underside. Here's another one. 2 species of booby this time. Bishop's Rock. There's the brown booby, but where's the other one? I want to come down to the other one. There's the starling. You can see everyone gets onto it.
Attractive, yeah.
Where is it? Where's the other one? Let's get onto it. I've got to find it again.
Greenish warble. Wow.
I've got to find it. Osprey. Where is it?
It's funny how many of these dudes you recognise from social media as we're
Chris
scrolling
Packham and
through
whatnot.
Yeah.
What's this one? Is this the... Oh, no, these are the shearwaters. Here we go. This is, again, Bishop Rock, so red-footed booby. So good on you, bloody UK
Even.
UK rare birds. Oh, there we go. There's the red-footed booby again. So I thought we'd have a bit of fun with rare birds, and that's just a little bit. Got some more comments. Let's just have a look here. Martin's going to check out the Willy Wagtails comment.
Yeah.
Naomi, hello, Naomi. Naomi's with us. Yes, Eastern Yellow Robins, major sticky beaks. Yes, anyone who has got a resident pair near them and does gardening will know that they will come down. And
I do not get that in my bushland wanderings, but maybe if they're a bit of an urbany fringe in your garden, right?
I will point out that in the bush, I don't find them coming in to be curious, but in the urban fringe and where they've been habituated with people, it's that disturbance aspect of their behaviour. If you're in the garden doing something, they will come down and wait for you to do some weeding or turn over some soil or something, and they'll come in. So
they are a vastly underrated bird, underappreciated bird.
Moves in and out of my top 3 favourite birds of all time, depending on what I've seen recently. I love the Eastern Yellow Robin. Naomi wants the scarlet honeyeaters to follow her.
I have a great bush trail where I go on where it's quite stunted and in the winter full of scarlet honeyeaters, and they're just above your head, like literally just above your head. And
just having a look here. Ricki, Naomi agrees about the Willy Wagtails and their disturbances and whatnot. So, yes, that's good. Martin's obviously been scouring the rare bird alerts. Rufous scrub wren at Bellingen. That would be... I wouldn't be surprised that's there, but that's a good sighting, isn't it? Because they're not a numerous
Rufous scrub wren? Is this a new species that I'm unaware of, or is dementia caught up with me? I'm now into my field guide to see what is a rufous scrub wren.
Well, it's like the eastern, not the noisy scrub wren, but the rufous scrub wren. What else would we call it?
A scrub wren.
We've got
is this like the large-billed scrub wren? Is this like a local name for this bird? A rufous scrub wren.
Oh, actually, I'm asking. I'm thinking, Martin. Does Martin mean scrub bird? That's what I instantly leapt to. Scrub bird. Martin, check with us on that one. Yeah, I should have.
Yeah,
that's instantly what I leapt to.
Yeah,
Rufous scrub bird.
Yeah. Latham snipe in your alley. Yeah, they're back. The Latham snipe should be back. Back in August.
Marsh sandpiper, probably overwintering, I would think, at this.
You've been getting around, Martin? Or are you getting these off eBay?
No, Martin's checking out he's doing our job for us. So this is the great thing about talking about rare bird alerts.
It's a fascinating thing, isn't it? Like once you get into it.
Yeah, and this is why we're not going to try and do like a detailed flit. Like I can have a look at a couple each time, but hopefully we're going to get people who manage these kind of sites come on and tell us a bit about.
We can usually access like the eBird, rare bird alerts.
Yeah, well, I've got some of the eBird ones up. Like for instance, I thought we'd have a look at a couple of places. Oh yeah, Martin has just confirmed. Yeah, scrub bird.
Scrub bird.
So I certainly. I mean, if I was at Bellingen and I was thinking I'd see a very sort of secretive, cryptic kind of bird, Rufous scrub bird. Yeah, you'd kind of think you might get lucky. Certainly not
Yeah,
really
if I
numerous
lived just
birds.
a little bit closer, I'd be twitching that.
Yep. Yeah, there
Definitely,
we
I'd be
go.
jumping in the car on that one. But
You'd be off on that.
it's just a little bit too far to go to not get it. Because
Well,
sometimes it takes a couple of goes.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, for something like that too. But geez, I'd like to get it.
Well,
Um,
here's a beauty for South Africa in the last 7 days. September the 1st, black
Not
buster
up on the screen.
at Limpo. Oh, I have to click. Oh, here we go. See, I'm so out of practice. So out of practice, Ricky. There we
So I
are.
think remember,
Black bustard in South Africa, Limpopo. So that, I
well, I
reckon
just
that's a
like to
good
go
one.
to the place called Limpopo.
Yeah, me too. Uh,
I could
I
say
have
hey,
no idea whether the dideric cuckoo is very rare or not, but again, that's at Limpopo. Um, redneck phalarope, always a good one. Seabirds here, always good ones. Antarctic tern at Elizabeth, Eastern Cape, Port Elizabeth. Um, Royal albatross, southern. Royal albatross, northern. Now, Royal albatross, northern, I would think would be a good one in South Africa, but again, I don't know enough to be sure. Pinkback pelican. That
I
sounds good
feel
too.
like at some point when we do our South African birds, we should get on the incredibly aptly named Fanzi peacock, who is an amazing South African birder.
Well,
To
we'll
give us
try
a
and
bit of
get.
a rundown, I can track Fanzi down, and he's an amazing character. And he's a man after my own heart. He's a birder, and he loves to do his illustrations and create little books and things and educate children. And yeah, he and I are on the same vibe.
Cool. Well, we will be reaching out to many of these people to see if we can talk to them. But this one did, when I was looking through, this one caught my attention. Redback shrike. Now, that's a migrant, and the redback shrike is often one of the ones that all the twitchers in the UK are going crazy for. So,
A handsome
that's a
bird.
bird that migrates from the UK and Northern Europe right down to that's the northwest of South Africa at the Pilanesberg National Park. Unconfirmed, so that means they haven't got a photo or something, but that's a nice one.
Terrible dark days when your sighting is confirmed by a photo. But anyway,
Yeah, but
that's been going
that's
on for a long time now. Yeah.
yeah, certainly with eBird too. And then eBird's always asking for things, and there's a Facebook group that I will be joining, but again, it seems to be just one person always posting from what I can see here in Africa, but there's the rare bird sighting. So there plenty of gallinule news. There's the South Africa one. I just want to flick through and see. Let's have a look here. Birdline. Oh, this is the one. This is the square-tailed kite in Victoria. Birdline Victoria, which was Eremia. So Chris Doughty, adult, square-tailed kite. Fantastic picture. Yarra Ranges Shire birding walk at Spadonis Reserve in Gruyere. I went out with a girl from Gruyere once when I was at school, so I even know where Gruyere is. It was on
If you went out with a girl from there, you would.
on a bird walk, and 24 participants saw the bird. Oh, Russell Keel took this shot, not Chris Doughty. So there we are. And there's the comment there. Very rare to see them around here. But this is another good one. Again, this is Victoria. Pied butcherbird. Now, they're certainly not common around Melbourne. I've seen one in all my time in Melbourne. But this was along Mooney Ponds Creek Trail near the Tullamarine Airport. So actually not very far from me, and by me I'm saying within sort of 10 k's, I think, of my place, depending on which side of the airport. So that's a beauty. And Peter Menkhorst made a comment here. Colonisation of Melbourne by yet another large aggressive carnivore is not desirable in my view, and will result in even more pressure on our declining small bird fauna. Completely agree, and that's one of these issues that we need to talk about often. Oh, now I've just noticed, Ricki, we've talked for ages about all these things. I knew this is what would happen as we got into these comments. Ricki's going to nick off in a minute because Ricki's got something she has to go and do. But I might whiz through a few more of these things after you drop off, Ricki, because there's a few others, like a brown cuckoo dove in Gypsy Point, which is down near Meetung and the Gippsland Lakes. So there's some really cool things. There's another.
I imagine that would be uncommon down in those parts. So yeah.
There's another of the square-tailed kite.
I am going to have to bail, unfortunately, but
that's all right. You've got to go and do car things.
Yeah, I've got to go. Yeah, got to be ready for that birding tour tomorrow morning. So yeah. Oof.
Oh, now Ricki, just before you go, this is one of the things we like to see. Flying south along the coastal cliffs at south of Mount Eliza. Here's a bird twice as big as the local seagulls. Let's see if we can get it up. I reckon the person who made the comment below this photo got it right. That was my first guess. That's two silver gulls chasing another bird along the coast.
It kind of looks like it, doesn't it? But you know, it's generally a good idea not to ask me about pelagic birds because they're not necessarily my thing. But the frigate birds I've seen have always been calmly gliding in big, not in smallish flocks, 5 or 6. Just looking like
definitely being harassed. And frigate birds are, of course, predators of young birds, of young chicks. So the behaviours are spot on, aren't they? So, so I wouldn't say yes, that's definitely a frigate bird, but of all the things it's likely to be, with those narrow wings, and the size, the length of those wings compared to the
way the wings are being used there.
Yeah, because they are able to twist them into all sorts of patterns. So all sorts of positions,
isn't it? Yeah.
So there we go. So that was a good one. Yeah, Naomi's gone, what? Frigate bird? So there we go. Frigate bird off the coast of southern Melbourne. So very good.
I've only seen them off the coast of northwestern Australia. In fact, overhead.
and the other note, even though it's not shown so much in the photo, is that the narrow forked tail, and that was taken with a phone. So fantastic.
Beauty, narrow forked tail seals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I must depart, but fantastic to spend yet another. I'll take another wonderful opportunity to basically live about birds, and thanks everyone who contributed.
So dip out whenever you like, Ricki. We'll be back doing this on the 26th at 3 p.m. More deep diving, and I'll just stick around for a little while if anyone wants to share some of their thoughts, and we'll troll through some more of these rare birds.
Well, I'll see you all later, and happy birding.
Hooroo. Thanks again, Ricki. All right, Ricki's gone. What have we got? Martin. There's been some albatrosses around Byron Bay. Okay. And Ricki has gone. Naomi didn't quite catch it. Or Ricki, there's obviously the lag in the helloing and whatnot. Okay, so Rowan Clark has mention here. Oh, here we go. It's a major rarity in Victoria. So there we go. So people are probably heading down looking for it. Let's have a look at the replies. Um, uh, Here's another photo. The fork tail and the thin angled wings. Useful second pretty classic. Let's have a look at the second photo. Yeah, not much bigger, is it? Not much better, is it? Yeah. So that's a bloody ripper, I reckon. So that was a fun one. Um, but then we're getting people saying Arctic Jaeger. I don't think it was a Jaeger. I think it's too small. So that was that. Looks like there. So yeah. What's Simon Star? Um, yeah, not a black kite. That's not a black kite for me. Uh, so yeah, so that was a really cool one. So let's get out of that one. Let's see if anything else is up there. Here we are, brown honeyeater in where's that? Casey. Brown honeyeater in Casey. That's a ripper. Um, let's just see. Yep, okay, I'll go with that one. Wow, that's a beauty. What do we got here? These are all Melbourne. Little wattlebird in where we're at. I don't know where that is. Okay. King parrots. Um, King parrots. Hooded plovers, 90 Mile Beach Lakes entrance. I used to see them regularly up there, so that's good. Oh, here we go. Tawny grassbird. Avondale Heights. That's just near me, so that's pretty cool. I might go looking for that one. Steel Creek Reserve. Okay, I will go looking for that. Oh, there we go again. Tawny grassbird in Portland. La, 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 la. Don't need my messages coming up there. It's one reason I hate Facebook. Another tawny grassbird, or probably the same one around Portland. What do we got there? Oh, a swamp hen getting some fish. Lake Coleraine. What have we got there? Are they crested terns? I would say. 400 freckled ducks. That's great. Okay. Oh, which Corella have we got here? Oh, Luke. That's a leucistic wattlebird. Wow. That's Campbell Creek in Castlemaine. That is a beauty. Let's have a look at that. This is a wattlebird. How about that? Ever seen something like that? That is amazing. All right. Coming across. Wow. I hadn't seen that. And now, for those of you who don't know, leucistic or leucistic, it's not albino, but it's where the dark plumage is white, but they are not true albinos, like with a pink eye or something. So that was pretty good. Fairy terns. What have we got here? Australasian bittern, Portland. So again, Portland's very far west. There's the leucistic red wattlebird. And the yellow tinged plumage that the red wattlebird has on the belly is still white on this. That's a beauty, isn't it? What have we got here? Black-eared cuckoo. That must be the one we were talking about before. That's a really nice shot. There we are. What do we got here? Crescent honeyeater. Oh, that's good. So people, painted snipe. That's Colin Trainer. Well done. Central Victoria. Good. Not giving away the exact location. What have we got here? Brown songlark. Very good. Tim Dolby. Who's with Tim here? Western Treatment Plant. And there we are. Yep. Okay, more bittens. Okay, I'm going to drop out of that one now. And this was another one I thought was interesting at the top of Scotland. Rare bird alerts all on the one day. This was a sandhill crane flying south, I think they said, from South Ronaldsay on the 29th of this month. So sandhill crane at the very north of Scotland. That would have been an unusual one, I would have thought. And Martin, I think you're referring to the leucistic red wattlebird. I hope you are. So yeah, that was a good one. What else did I say that was interesting? There's no visuals on that one, so we won't bring that up. If we got okay, that's there. Come back to this one. Rare birds. I'm just having a look before I change it over. Oh, this was an interesting one. A very interesting one, again, from South Africa. I don't know how rare it is, but let's pop this one up. It's the long-crested eagle. So it's an interesting bird. Needed some identification. What else we got? Bachelor eagle. This American gallinule. Where did that turn up? Cape Town. There we are. So like a swamp hen there. It's still there. So the point of doing these, talking about these rare birds from around the world, just that I'll stop this now, pop that out, is that sometimes we go bird watching and we discount what we may have seen because it's not usually found here, or we don't know about that being here. Bear in mind, things will turn up from all over the place. So always go through the process of identifying, going through whichever steps you normally use or whichever field guide you use. And if you're pretty confident that you've identified something correctly, or that the only birds that are supposed to be in your area, in your bird book, don't match what you have seen, and if you didn't get a good photo, obviously, don't discount that you might have seen something rare and or unusual. So that would be my comment, my thought, and that's really what we're going to be trying to do with the Birdwatching Deep Dive. And we will be trying to talk to some of the people who maintain these groups or who have seen some of the really, really interesting things around the world. And Martin, I think you were talking about the wattlebird because you said yes, but I think this comment is about the frigate bird. Would that be right? Or are you mentioning that so many birds can turn up in unusual places when there has been storms, cyclones, hurricanes, typhoons? Um, Also, I reckon unusual extreme high and low pressure that may not be associated with storms can often move birds around too. Uh, I Naomi, good point. Don't be surprised when eBird rejects it if it's not a good enough photo. Well, that's where some of the other groups like Facebook, the Facebook Bird ID groups, can be helpful, because if somebody like Tim Dolby or Rowan Clark are going to say, yes, I think that's a pretty good ID, that's good enough for me. And especially sometimes you will see that a lot of these birds, or we've just seen, that, maybe 10, 15, 20 people will see the same species in the same location. That painted snipe was a good one on the list there. So yeah, just go with it. Yeah, unusual places. Yes, Martin, that's quite right. Depending on what, yeah, birds move. Birds move around. They sometimes will confirm, Martin, if you have really good observations, or if you were able to record a call, something like that. So they just won't accept that you saw a golden-shouldered parrot on the outskirts of Brisbane. That, or I mean, that's a bit extreme, but they will. If you can describe things that you saw that make it clear that it was something, they may go with it. So, Pinkamena, what have we got here? Seen photos of seagulls way inland in Idaho. Well, gulls are global travellers. So some species prefer very localised habitats, like they might be only east coast of a continent or south coast of a continent, but there are gulls that turn up all over the world. One of the ones, and I can't find the post, but Sabine's gull, people in some locations were saying that there's Sabine's gull in places at the moment where they are not regular visitors, but nearly all the seabirds, don't be surprised if you see them anywhere, because they are seabirds. They travel all over the place. And as Martin mentioned before, storms can often move them around, but they'll often follow food resources, and currents around the world are changing at the moment. We're having really unusual interruptions to normal or regular oceanic currents now. Now, if birds rely on those currents to bring food to the surface, if that's depending on how they feed, well, they're going to follow those currents. And if they're unusual, well, they might be being seen around the equator where they might have only been sub-Antarctic or sub-Arctic before. Who knows? So, yeah, just develop your ID skills. And get better at identifying the really hard birds, because hard birds are always hard. Always hard. So I'm going to wrap up, unless you've got other things you really want to tell me about. But I encourage you to, the next two things in the diary. Monday with Holly will be midday on the 18th of this month. The next deep dive with Ricki be 3 p.m. on Tuesday, the 26th of this month. So that's seriously deep into footy finals time here. And I think school holidays too. So let me know if there are interesting things you've seen or that you would like to talk about. I didn't make my make the email. Submit or submission. Submit at thebirdemergency.com or submission at thebirdemergency.com. If you want to draw my attention to something, there's so many of these rare bird sites and rare bird alerts. I will miss something. So if you've seen something you want to talk about, draw my attention to it by sending me an email or hit me up on, if you're already connected with me on one of the socials, you can do it that way. But I do prefer them in email because I don't miss the emails usually, and I can star it, flag it, and follow any link that you might send me. So please do that. I might have made a birdwatching deep dive special background by then too, so that these shows will look different to the other regular ones we do. Tomorrow I hope to lock in a few new guest interviews to get the regular podcast back on track. When I do those, I will be maybe streaming them for members only, or for those supporting on Buy Me a Coffee only in the first instance. Depends how many people lock in a week, so I'll let you know. So if you're not already a member or a supporter, consider becoming one, and follow. Make sure you've followed, or what do we do? Do we just follow on YouTube? Subscribe. No, subscribe to the Bird Emergency on YouTube, because that's definitely where the first things will be going out. But we will still be streaming regular shows on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitch, YouTube, and for the time being on the Twitter app formerly known as Twitter, that is now called this numeral X. So unless you've got anything else you want to tell me quickly, I will be pulling up stumps and going to cook some dinner. It's been nice to see you all. Naomi, thank you again for some love on Facebook. Yes, and those of you on Facebook, Twitch, nice to see the Twitch people on board again, and YouTube. If there's anyone watching on Twitter, I can't tell, unfortunately. One of the things that's happening up here. What have we got here? The Unbirded Bird app. I don't know. Unbirded, the bird app. I will. I'll make a note of Unbirded now on my whiteboard, so I can check it out. Here's me making a note of Unbirded. Thank you for that, Pinkamena. Hang on. The Unbirded. I don't know. I'll look up Unbirded and I'll see what's what. Where are we? Get back here, Martin. Yes, thank you. It's always a nice way to have. Okay. Now I understand. Yes, Martin. It's always nice talking about birds. Pinkamena. Now I understand what you mean. The Unbirded app. The app formerly known as Twitter. What is he doing with that app? Who knows, hey? Yes. Amazing. So yeah, Martin, Naomi, Pinkamena, thanks for contributing. And for those others of you who haven't been contributing and are just lurking, the whole point of the Birdwatching Deep Dive is to talk about what we've all been doing, going out with our binoculars or our cameras and what we've seen. See, Naomi, the camera are the binoculars. Yes, I've taken that to to heart. And there we go. Martin said it best. See ya. Enjoy your birding until next time we catch up. Hopefully you'll be with me for midday Monday with Holly on the 18th, or back with Ricki again on the 26th at 3 p.m. Australian Eastern. Probably summertime by then, will it? Australian Eastern time anyway. See ya.